nwHacks 2022. Right, okay. Okay, hello everyone. This is the nwHacks 2022 Front-End React and Heroku workshop. I hope everyone's having a great evening, and we're just gonna jump right into it. Oh. Okay, so this is a disclaimer. This workshop will cover a lot of material relatively quickly, so if you find yourself behind, please refer to the workshop companion guide on Notion. This is highly recommended. If you need help, please ask in the designated Discord channel. A TA can assist you and set up a breakout room with you. So if you have any questions, or also drop them in the designated Discord workshop channel. And at any point in which you feel that you have fallen behind, reference the workshop companion notes to catch up. And don't be afraid to copy paste or ask to get into a breakout room. All right, so here's our workshop handbook and resources. So we have pre-workshop, workshop info, and companion guide. We will send these links in the chat. So if you're watching this as a video, I believe we'll have this link provided in the description of the video below. So if not, feel free to contact us for those links. Okay, so here is our timeline. This workshop will take approximately an hour and a half, or maybe just a bit more. We'll go through introductions, objectives, prerequisites, an overview, which will be about React theory, and then some React knowledge that we'll apply to our workshop, such as functions called hooks. So this section would be the most important for a good pre-overview of the actual coding part. And then the coding exercise, which is implementing a GitHub issue explorer. It can get pretty difficult. It can go quite fast due to the limited time. So I'm going to go try and go through this quickly so that you guys have more time during the coding part. After that, we'll do the deployment if we have time and go over some additional resources and conclusions. So introductions, my name is Samantha. I'm going to be one of the co-hosts today, along with Ben. I'm a second-year student, and Ben is a fourth-year CS student, and we both attend UBC. We're also both in the HackCamp Logistics team for NW+. All right, we also have your lovely TAs. I sort of just slapped their pictures on the outer heads, but these are our firefighters. So if your code is on fire or you need help, direct your questions to them and they'll help you and get you caught up. So learning goals, by the end of this workshop, you should be able to understand and modify React and JSX code, create and use components, make an API call, and deploy using Heroku. All right, the prerequisites. So I hope you guys have done the pre-workshop items, because we're not going to have time to go over it. So here's just a quick list. Do not worry too much though if you haven't set these up. We have somewhat of a quick solution. So for whatever reason you could not get this environment set up, we highly recommend you use the Replit's dev environment in the browser to follow along in the workshop. You can find the instructions right below this section, and it should take 5 minutes to set up. We can also send the Replit link in the chat, and the instructions will be in the pre-workshop guide. All right. Oh, I mean, you could also try to set it up while I go through the overview, but not too sure if that's going to work out. All right, so let's go over the front-end fundamentals quickly. So front-end programming is what happens in the browser. So everything the user sees and interacts with, and back-end works on the server side and communicates with database. So as you should all know, we are working with the front-end today for this workshop. Okay, so what is React? React is a free and open source front-end JavaScript library for building user interfaces developed by Facebook in 2011. It allows us to make complex UIs and isolated pieces of code called components. And it follows the component-based approach where React breaks down the UI into smaller and reusable components that can move data amongst each other. In vanilla.js or just regular JavaScript, the code becomes very difficult to maintain if the application is large, because in such cases, the UI needs to be updated regularly. So here, to change a UI element, you need to first find the element in the DOM and then update it. This is fine when you have to update only a single element, but imagine doing this on a long form which a user needs to fill. So this could be very memory and browser intensive. So this is where React comes in. And with a great feature, it has its own virtual DOM. I'll get more into the differences between real DOM and the virtual DOM in the next few slides. But the virtual DOM is a shortcut to bypass the manual work. It is a lightweight copy of the actual DOM, and it has the same properties as the real DOM, but lacks the power to make changes on the screen. But essentially with React, we can manage to keep the UI and the state synchronized with each other. And for example, a social media platform, your friends comment on a picture of yours and you want to see it immediately. And you want to shift from liking posts to commenting or sharing without being slowed down. So This can be done in vanilla JS too, but the number of changes you'd have to do in the code would be very tedious. And all this tiresome work can be avoided by using something like React. So basically with React, we can manage to keep the UI and the state synchronized with each other. And in vanilla JS, if you have to change the state, you would need to update the UI. And one small mistake and your UI could be out of sync with your data. So yeah, lastly, code organization and reuse is another important aspect of React. A component created only once can be used multiple times with different data. Okay, so yeah, I'll go over what a DOM is in case you don't know. It's short for Document Object Model. It represents programming interface for web documents. And here's just also the quick distinction table between real DOM and the virtual DOM, just to solidify your understanding from the previous slide. I'm not going to go over too much, but you can definitely see some of the benefits of virtual DOM. Yeah, but we will go over how the virtual DOM works. So it works in 3 simple steps. So on the right, we put a more visual representation. So number 1, whenever the any underlying data changes, the entire UI is re-rendered into virtual DOM representation. 2, then the difference between the previous DOM representation and the new one is calculated. And 3, once the calculations are done, the real DOM will be updated with only the things that have actually changed. Okay, so in this workshop, we'll be using JSX, but what is it? So, well, JSX is a syntax extension to JavaScript. So this is a type of file used by React, which utilizes the expressiveness of JavaScript along with HTML, like HTML-like syntax or template syntax. This makes the HTML file really easy to understand. And this file makes applications robust and boosts its performance. So below is an example of JSX. JSX expression starts with an HTML open tag and ends with the corresponding closing tag. So here's a list covering the features and advantages of React, but you don't really need to know this, but here's a quick list if you're interested. You can just look over these slides, which is provided to you in the workshop guide. And then there's also limitations of React, which again, I'm not going to go over. We don't have time. So yeah. So, okay, now the more important part, the common React knowledge applied to this workshop. So this is actually the part that is important. And I'll go through a simple example code. These are the things that we'll be using for the coding exercise. Okay, so React hooks. So there are functions. These are functions that we will be using. It's just a function for you to quote unquote hook into React features. We'll be using useState, useEffect, and useHistory, which React provides for us. So you can actually make your own hooks, but we'll be using the ones provided. Okay, so one of the first hooks you'll learn is the useState. So this returns a pair of values, that being a current state value and a function that lets you update it. So what does it do? It declares a state variable. So if you look at our first example below, we declare a state variable called count, but it could be called something like cups or something. Here you are. But this is a way to preserve some values between the function calls. You may notice if you have coded before, this is similar to this.setState in the class. However, there are differences. For example, normally variables quote unquote disappear when the function exits, but state variables are preserved by React. And the only argument to useState hook is the initial state. So looking again at our first example below, the initial state is 0. That being the declared state variable count is set to 0. And so if we want to update the count, we can call setCount. This is the function that lets you update the state variable count. Just a note, we'll be using this count example throughout the next few slides. So if you look to the right, this is a simple example that uses the hooks and talks we'll be going over. Yeah, so don't forget that we need to import it. So on the top, we import useState here. Another note, useState works for any variables like strings, arrays, objects. For example, the second example, we use arrays, that being that you can see the squared brackets indicating an array. Okay, so useState actually goes well with the next thing that we'll be talking about, which is event handling. So essentially, if you didn't know, event handling is the mechanism that controls the event and decides what should happen if an event occurs. So we could actually relate this back to the count example where we have an event handle for every time someone clicks on a button. We can call a setCount to update the count and add 1. But on these slides, I'm just showing you how the different syntax between HTML and React for event handling. But the next slide will correspond to our count example. So yeah, here it is. So on click, just means whenever user clicks the button, some function will handle it. And in this case, it is the handle click function. So if we look at the second box on the right, we implemented handle click. So basically call the set count from the use state example and add 1 to the count variable. So yeah, again, it updates the count variable. And this also ties in really well with the next hook being use effect. Sorry, I know I'm going really fast, but we have to go fast. It is a hook where you can run your effect function only when certain values have changed. So in our code, after updating the count variable, what do we want to happen next? Or I guess, yeah, so like in this case, maybe we want to change the document title of our page when the document variable changes. That being whenever we call set count, that's called when we click on that button, button click +1 from the event handling. So we have the use effect and we want document title to change according to the count variable. So at the end of this function, we have an array where you can store certain variables. And if any of those variables change in the array, whatever is in use effect will run. So in this case, that certain variable is count right here. So whenever count is changed, use effect will run. Okay, so altogether, this is what we end up with. Just a simple example where if user clicks on the button, we handle that on click event with handle click, which calls set count declared from the use state hook. And by calling set count, we update the count variable. And when that count variable changes, we want to update the document title to show number of count accordingly, number of counts or clicks accordingly, or whenever it updates. Okay, so last hook, this is the use history hook, which we'll also be using. I didn't provide an example for this. We don't really have the time to go over it, but a fast summary is that it lets you access the history instance used by React Router. And by using the history instance, you can redirect users to another page. So the history instance created by React Router uses a stack called history stack that stores all the entries the user has visited. The history object returned by use history has various properties and methods. So the properties that I'm going to go over quickly is location, so returns an object that represents the current location, and it may have the following properties: path name, which is a string containing the path of the URL. The method we'll be using for this workshop is the push path state, which pushes a new entry onto the history stack. Again, this hook is useful for redirecting users to another page. Okay. API call with async functions. So async functions is a way to run code in order. It operates in a different order than the rest of the code. For example, you would execute an API call, then you would execute another API call after the first one is done. So the return values are guaranteed to be converted to promises. So we'll be using fetch. So this fetch API accesses resources across the network, and you can make HTTP requests using get, post, and other methods. Download and upload files. So to start a request, call the special function fetch, which accepts 2 arguments: resource, the URL string, or a request object. Then options, the configuration object with properties like methods, headers, body credentials, and more. So fetch starts a request and returns a promise. So when the request completes, the promise is resolved with the response object. And if the request fails due to some network problem, the promise is rejected. Async await syntax fits great with fetch because it simplifies the work with promises. And so when the request completes, response is assigned with the response object of the request. So in the next slide, we'll see how to extract useful data like JSON or plain text from the response. Okay, so fetching JSON. This is the last slide before we have don't worry, this is the last slide, last slide before we have a 5-minute break and start the actual coding exercise. But yeah, the response object returned by await fetch is a generic placeholder for multiple data formats. So for example, you can extract the JSON object from a fetch response. So response.json, which is the method on the response object that lets you extract a JSON object from the response. So the method returns a promise, so you have to wait for the JSON await. You have to wait for the JSON, like await response.json. The response object offers a lot of useful methods, all returning promises. So in this example, response.json returns a promise resolved to a JSON object. but we can do a response.text, which returns a promise resolved to raw text. Okay, yay, that was very long, but we just finished the React theory section, and we can now do the coding exercise. I know we went really fast, so if you have any questions, you can ask the TA in the chat or just private message them, I guess. But I'm gonna put this slide here again. So this is gonna be like, I guess, important, especially the workshop companion guide, which will help you with the coding part. So for now, we'll just have a 5-minute break as we transition to the coding exercise, and for you to get some water, you know, to stay hydrated, and ask me to go to a certain slide if needed. And if any of the TAs can send the links again to the chat, that would be great. Thank you. If you need to reach out to me, you can message me on Discord. My name is just Sam on the server. And so yeah, just stay hydrated.
Not yet. Okay, now we are recording now. Great. So yeah. Okay, so let's dive directly into it then. So we will be following the workshop companion notes today. This is the page that will have everything you need. It will have step-by-step instructions, and this is what we'll be going through today. So what are we doing? So by the end of this workshop, hopefully you will be able to understand and modify some React and JSX code, create and use new components, be able to make an API call, and if we have time, we can deploy with Heroku. But there are steps at the end. If we don't have time, you could just follow them yourself. It's really fast, and you can deploy the website. So what does our workshop look like? So a workshop looks like this. Our end product will have a GitHub issue explorer. You have a search bar here. You can type in github.com and then put repository. So we're going to use the React Facebook repository. Press enter, and then you will see a bunch of issues. So what happened in the back end is the API call. Well, it's not back end, it's just the front end. What happened on the front end? There's a GitHub API call. It took API call to get all the list of all the repository issues in that specific repository, and that's public. And then just like rendered all of them here. We also have pagination on the bottom where you can select the page and essentially get new pages of your new data as well. So let's get into it. So what's the first step? So the first step is to get the starter file and getting a repository. So we open our VS Code, or you can use Replit as well. You just open the terminal, and then we just get cloned. So we just copy paste this command, or you can, if you have this open, you just get copy paste here, go to your terminal, type git clone to clone the repository, and here we go. We're cloning it directly into this. This is an empty folder, by the way. Now that I get cloned it, you can see that I have my clone repository here. So let's cd into that. Okay, so we cd into that. Cd means change directory. So essentially we want to get into that repository. So we are now there. We want to next check out the starter, because right now the current branch, if we do get branch, we are main is actually the solution. So we gotta get checkout the starter code, which will have some blanks in it for us to do later on and to-dos. Next, we want to install our packet dependencies and packages. In this workshop, we are using npm, the node package manager. If you prefer to use Yarn, you can use Yarn as well. The difference is just right here. So we will be using npm install, but if you are using Yarn, you can do Yarn install. But let's just install our packages right now. So npm install our packages. It'll take some time. And yeah, so just a reminder that if you have any questions, please leave them in our Discord front end server right here. I mean, this the nwHacks channel. We have a channel right here where you can just drop in your request, or maybe you can also go to the ask for assistance right here and submit a ticket. TA will help you with that. Okay. So we're just gonna wait for that to install real quick, and then we can move on. Okay. I guess while we're waiting for, oh, okay, it's done installing. So there are vulnerabilities in this code, unfortunately, due to our dependencies being outdated, but you don't have to worry about that right now. So let's just run our code. So to run our environment, you do npm start. If you're on Yarn, you do yarn start. So npm start will open a new browser tab in your window. Starts your development server. It'll go usually to localhost 3000. This is where you can see all your changes to your website. So you should see a hello world. Hopefully seeing hello world, it means that you did indeed check out the correct one. If you see this, it means that you're probably on the wrong branch. You're probably on the main branch or a solution branch. So you should do git checkout in your terminal and check out to the starter code. Yeah, so there's our hello world. We know that we ran it correctly. So let's get started. Okay, so typically in a React application, the index.html page, which is usually found in the public folder, is a default page. And editing this page as seen here, it's just your typical HTML. You have all your headers, your meta tags, etc., your title and your body. And then if you notice that, for example, example.com is a website everyone uses it as an example. The home page is usually the index.html. Example.com / nothing, or example.com with nothing, or is equivalent to example.com / index.html, because the index.html is your default page essentially. Okay, so in the starter code, this will be our default page. We do note that this particular div of interest. So in React, typically you would do something like create React app, like create React app. Don't actually type that, but that's typically what command you would use to create a basic hello world React app. It will pretty much generate most of these folders and files for you already, minus maybe the components and pages. So in that, every single file will also have this index.html page, which has a root. And then what happens in this div, this root div, is that we will use it to render our root React DOM. So if we go to the index.js, we can see that this is pretty much the entry point of our program. We will render a React element, which is the app component, into the DOM. In this case, we render the root DOM because everything is inside will be managed by React DOM. So notice how we do document.get element by ID root. So we're essentially rendering our app components with our React DOM render to that root div. Okay, so let's get started now. So usually if you click on control click into the app, or you can go to the file tree and then navigate to your root directory, and then go to source, and then go to app.js. You will be able to go to this app component. So if you create your hello world, create React app, simple piece of code, then like the template for the hello world program, then this would be populated with like a spinny React logo and edit source. Basically, this is what you see in your local host. So what that is basically this, whatever you see here. In this case, we deleted that part and just replaced it with hello world. So it just makes it a little bit more different. So it's not like the default. Yeah, so typically you will start editing your React application here. You'll change this template to whatever application you want. Cool. So our first task is to just comment out the hello world h1 tag right here and import the routes components and add it to this div. So when you have a React application and component, essentially, what happens is you always have a return function inside the component. In this case, we are using functional components. It's different from class-based components, which you might be more familiar with object-oriented languages like Java, which uses that kind of stuff, class object-oriented and class-based kind of format. So like, you have your constructors, etc. But in this case, we'll be using functional components, which is something a relatively newer portion in React. So the app.js is the file for this app component, and then what we would do is let's just get started. So first to comment this out, we do have a solution here. I accidentally opened it. Comment it out, add the routes file, import the routes. So how do you import? Import routes. And then and then if we look at our file tree, oh, I can't misspell today. I can't type properly. If you look at our file tree, or directory, you see our routes.jsx, we want to import it from there. I do routes.jsx. Cool. And then we want to add it into and render it. We want to add it to our div and return statement. So just add the routes here. After adding the routes, you'll be able to see those changes update directly. So this is what you should see on your page after you add the routes. So you can see in React that it did render it very quickly. If you want to explore why that's the case, I recommend you do some of the reading of why that happens. And there's also explanatory comments inside this companion notes guide. So yeah, so now we know that the hello world is gone. We deleted it right here. It's gone. We have our new logo, our title, and then another basically smart description. Yeah, and also do note that for every return statement inside your React components, you do need, so this is JSX essentially. You do need to have a parent component. So in this case, we have a parent div that wraps around the routes. If we had something like a div here and then we did this, it would break because we don't have an enclosing tag. So we do have to wrap it around a parent tag as well. So just start that over again, just by saving and then compiling and make sure everything works. So it does work, cool. And then now let's control click into our routes. So that brings us to do number 2. So what is this routes page? We will be using the React Router DOM library to simplify routing our application. We use the components browser router, switch, and router. So essentially, this allows us to do our routing. So for example, over here, you see the default / it will just bring you to home. So localhost / will bring you back to the home page. So what you see here is actually the home page. So that brings us to do number 2. To do number 2 is we want to import the results page. So it's not done yet. We want to look at the home import state on line 4 for reference. So you can look at that and then add 2 of the routes to the following format. So /home should route to the home component, results should route to the results page. Okay, so you can give it a try. Maybe I'll give you like 10-20 seconds. If not, we'll just go directly through it. I apologize right in advance because we do have a lot of content today, and this workshop's focused more on getting you the tools to be able to build immediately and be able to modify and add as fast as possible. Okay, so let's just go implement it. So how do we actually do the to-do number 2? So first, what I usually do would copy paste the home because I'm lazy to type it, and then we can import the results page. We do know that there is a results page that exists by looking at our file directory, going to our pages folder. We see a results page.jsx, so we could just place the home with the results page. Next, we want to add the routes. So to add the routes, we want the home to direct to the home component, results to the results component. So we can also copy paste this twice. Oof, I don't want GitHub Copilot. How do I turn you off? Okay, it's off already. Interesting. Cool. So we have this route here. We can do home because it's basically exactly the same, but I just added this exercise just to as an exercise. Results to results. So now we have 2 routes. You would hopefully get an error. This error is because of an undefined set query. We can change that in the results page right away. The reason this exists now is because we are redirecting and calling the results page. So to fix this error, right click into results page, control click. I mean, oh, it's not right click. It's control click, by the way. Control click into the results page or go to the pages and the results page.jsx, go to line 86. Or it could be another line if you modified something and just comment it out. That is a hook that we will modify later. Okay. Let's go back to our workshop companion guide. Here it is. Okay. So again, if you're behind, there is the answer right here. You can just look at it and then take a look. Okay, so this is our routes are completed now. So a quick explanation about the routes would be basically what happens is the 3 components we imported from the React Router DOM. The browser router is for the router implementation for HTML5 browsers. You can see more information here. The switch returns only the first matching route. That is a typo. That is also a typo. The first matching route rather than all the matching routes, and then the link is replacement for anchor tags. So if you're familiar with HTML, you can have anchor tags to components as well. But in this case, we want to set it with a switch so that a switch statement so that our path matches this component and directs them to this home component, and then home to home, results to results page, etc. Okay, so we did fix this error, and now we're on step 10. So we already finished that. So now we're going to be understanding some actual components next. If you're behind, of course, there are a lot on the workshop companion notes. You can find all the solutions all compiled here, right? In these nice sections here. You'll always see a light bulb. Are you behind? And then you could just click on the toggle with all the solutions. Okay, so let's go to the next part. So we will go through the next few parts. We'll go explore like all the pages that we created essentially. So let's dive right in. So the first page we look at is home. So this page will be our home page. So this is what you see here. In this page, it will render the home page contents when we route to the / or the /home. Typically, React pages consist of many other components, and components can be defined as classes or functions. I did mention this before. We will be using functional components for where each of our components is a function. So you can note that there is an arrow function here. Hopefully you are familiar with the arrow function notation, which we are using in this workshop. And a function can also accept props, which is short for properties. Is basically an object argument with data, and it can also basically return a React elements. And then further reading here and documentation here if you would like it. Okay. So let's go into basically to number 3. To do number 3 is basically, I shouldn't have even put as a to do, but we are going to go inside this React component. Remember that in your return statement, you only can have like one parent div. You have to basically wrap your JSX tags in an enclosing tag with basically a parent tag. In this case, since we only have one, that's fine because it's the only component here. So we can control click into the home content JSX and we will see this big page here. Let's explore this big page now to satisfy to do number 3. So this is basically our first component in our home page, in the home.jsx React page. This page will represent all the contents that you see on the home page. So if we look at our solution, this should be our home page. So you should have the logo, this thing, search bar, and this. And then once you type in search bar, it'll do some kind of action or activity. So we're missing a search bar here, so we have to code it in later. But in this homepage content, we can use inline styles or separate into separate CSS files and import it. So you can import it as just like, import like styling from, and then your whatever your path to your CSS file would be. And then to save time, we just did inline styling. Looks kind of ugly, but it is really fast, and most likely in your hackathon, like you will in your hackathon projects, you will probably do inline styling as well. You can look into more documentation on styling if you're not familiar with it with these resources here. So right here, we already see our first hook. Use window dimension is actually just a hook to update the window dimensions documentation. You can pretty much ignore it. We're just putting it here to simplify getting the width and height. You can do some more reading over here, but let's dive right into the actual content. So when we want to code our React page, what happens is inside this return, we have our parent div, which encloses everything. As you can see from this line here, all the way down here. If you don't enclose everything, all the contents within one parent div, then it will break. We have our inner div, which wraps around this image. Basically, what this does is it positions this image. What you see, this image is actually this GitHub logo. So this div surrounds this. This div is actually bigger than I expected. Actually, no, this div surrounds all the content here and basically positions it 90% of the width, max width 90%, and the height 90%. You can ignore the CSS here. But you see the image, you can see the image component here. I mean, the image HTML tag here. And then there's a typography. So what typography is, it's just a component that you can import from a library. In this case, we'll be using a Material UI library, which allows us to have pre-built components, which is incredibly helpful. So this is your title, essentially. And then you have a search section that's not implemented. And then you have a few issues, which is a typography here. So this leads us to do number 4. Of course, you can read this in your own time. It's just like more in depth. Almost actually, some of it's the same explanatory comments, but unfortunately, due to time constraints of the workshop, we can't go through everything. But yeah, this brings us to step 11. So to do number 4 is navigate into the search section component. In the search section component, we want to try to understand what it does. Okay, so search component, let's navigate. So just control click into the search section, or you can go to your source components, and then you could go to search section. Okay, so this search section will be the component which handles all the search, basically the search section of your page. So it will be your search bar, you can type stuff into it, and it uses the history hook to push it into a next page. So what happens here is if we just test our page here, github.com/react/facebook/react. This is the repository. You press enter. What you notice that the home page, it takes the URL and then it pushes it to, it basically redirects you to the results page, and it does the API call and then has on, and then basically this page populates the data for you. So what does that mean? That means our home page has a search bar component, which has to, and then somehow push the whatever contents the user filled in here to the results page. So we will have to code that into this page, this functionality into the page. So let's go right into it. So, and that brings us to the 4th section, which is the use state and use history hooks. A use state hook is probably one of the most very, very common if you program in React and in web dev jobs in general, in industry, web development jobs specifically in React. It's how you update the state. So in the section, of course, this contains all that code. So what is a hook? If you don't know what a hook is, it enables us to use state and other React features without writing a class. So you can afford writing a class right away. You can just use the hook, and then you'll be able to modify your state throughout that component and throughout your application. So let's work together and build our first hook. So the first hook we need is use state search and set search hook. So how do we do that? Let me just actually expand this window so it's actually a bit easier for you to see the code. Okay. Okay, sorry. There we go. Okay, so what exactly use state? So use state is right here. You import it from your React library. You'll be able to essentially get a returns a stateful value in the function to update it. The use state returns that pair. So current state and the function to update it. What happens is from Sam's slides, as you can see from our example, we will have to use a array destructuring syntax that allows us to give different names to the state variables. And then by calling the functions paired with it, you'll be able to update that state variable. So in this case, let's just code to do 5 together. So the format of a use state hook is typically like this. What happens is you set your pair here. It could be any variable you like. Commonly it's just your variable and then like a function that updates it. So you just, what I do is just copy paste this and change it from like lowercase to capital and then just put like a set on it. So this function, if you pass anything into it, it sets the search for this. And then you also have to set an initial use state. So this is the initial state of your search. So search is equal to whatever in the very initial part. So what do I have to do? We have to set the initial state to an empty string. So we set it here and there we go. So our solution here, constant set search equals use state, and then we set it to an empty string. So this means that our search is now equal to an empty string, and then we call set search. It updates our search value to be whatever set search it would be. So if I did something like set search hello world, our search value here will now, our search will now be equal to hello world. But this is why the reason why we want this in this page is so that when the user like changes something on their search bar, we can update it immediately and set the search equal to the new URL or whatever string they put in. Okay, let me quickly close that. I keep clicking it for some reason. Okay, so now we have the set search. We will go over use history after, but basically TLDR enables us to access the history instance by using React Rotor. And we can redirect users to another page and basically be able to access data from that previous page. So as you can see, remember from the example, user enters the repository URL Facebook/React, and then it pushes it into the results page here. And then for some reason, we have access to that data. It's because of the history. So the documentation here, we use the history method push. So we will use new history, and then you can see the documentation later. But let's keep going. I hope that you understand what an event handler is. So if you code in HTML, maybe you're familiar with like the button. If you click on a button, like an event is triggered. Maybe it has a pop-up. Maybe it like increases a counter. Maybe it does whatever, or redirects you to a new page. So we would usually use event handlers to handle events like that. So this brings us to the next to do. Let me go back to this here. Actually, we skipped the one. So actually, we won't do to do number 7. So keep that thought. Keep the thought of event handlers for now. So we have the use history, so that we initiate the history object. We have the state, so that we do have the state. We have to implement the search bar to actually use the state first. So that's actually to do number 6. It goes all the way down here. So scroll down to the bottom of the page, and then we go to actually the return at the bottom of your page. So in this return, we render the actual search bar component. We will use the search bar. We would use a search bar library so that we don't have to code too much. So we have the search bar here. We import from Material UI search bar, and we have it here. So the next to do is basically import the search bar and use the following properties. So I gave you all the properties. You just have to try to figure out what to put on in the on change and what to put on the on requests. So we're actually going to do it now. So we have the search bar, and then we can put the properties inside. So value is already given to us. So value is just empty. So this is like the default value we have. It's empty. We have our on change, which is like for now question mark. We have our on request search, which is also for now a question mark that we have to do after. And then we have a placeholder. So I'm just gonna copy paste this right here. Okay. The reason why it's red is because I'm not putting it into a parent. I'm not enclosing it in like a parent element, JSX element. Okay, so now let's add the on change. So what's on change and what's on request search? So on change is fired when the text value changes. So when you're inside the search bar, if I type something like hello, the on change, whatever, the on change will fire and essentially do something. So so it gets triggered every time you basically the user like type something or delete something or like modifies the search bar in any way. So this is really helpful because remember we have our set search use effect. I mean set search use state here. So we want to set our search. So we want to update our search value from the whatever previous state it was to a new state. So how do we do that? We can just use the onChange method, and then we could add like a quick function in here, like search. So doing arrow function, and then we do a set search. We can put any variable in here. In this case, we'll just put search input, and then we'll just set the search to search input. Search input. Okay. Let me see what is wrong with this. Okay, so there you go. I put two brackets by accident. Okay, so what this does is on change when someone changes the text value of the search bar, it will take that input and it'll set the search. So our search state is now updated. On request search is when user clicks enter, and it fires when you basically click enter. So what do we do here? We would call an event handler. So we do another arrow function, and then we just call it handle search. Handle search is an event handler, and then we would pass in search, which is our search content. So handle search is what handles the pushing to the next page and pushing, basically storing your values and whatever content that you need from the URL to the results page. So let's just go back to number 7 now. So handle search is event handler. It takes in like the query. The query would be whatever user input, and then we would do some quick, I guess, like quick filtering or like basically extraction, data extraction. So what we do of the URL, so we want to process the string. So we do the dot split function. Dot split function takes in a string, essentially. In this case, we are splitting our query based off a delimiter, which is this slash. So if we do github.com/Facebook/react right here, then we see you have, then if you see we have 2 slashes, so just split it over here, and it would just give you this example. So in this example, we call the split function. It gives us an array, and based off like these this delimiter, this / delimiter. So you have 0, 1, and 2. According to the according to GitHub API, the API GET request we want is called getting all the repository issues. It requires you to have the repository owner and the repository name. So in this case, we just need to React. We need a Facebook and React. So what we're doing in this handle search function is we split the search query into Facebook and React, and then we would basically save these 2 values and push it to the next page. We are in this code here, we also have an else if. So basically what this does is after we split it, we have this beautiful array of github.com, Facebook, and React. We check the first element of the array, and if it includes github.com, it means that it's the user entered this one. And then in that case, we would use our history push. So we push the path name of results, but that's where we want to store the stuff. History is a stack. We push it to the stack. And then we also have a state object in which we can set the properties of that object. So we would save the owner and array one. Array one would be Facebook in this case, and then the repository would just take the second array of that second element array. However, we wanted to also accept another case. Say like I'm lazy, I don't want to type in github.com. I just want to go to an actual repository and just copy the link. If you copy a link from a browser, it adds the HTTPS automatically, as you can see here. So that is another check we just added here. So in this case, HTTPS and then GitHub and then owner repository slash repo name. We just check if it includes the first thing, and if not, we just change the array indexing, as you can see here. That's all. So yeah, and then of course, if the user types in something weird, like something like this, they'll just have a pop-up that says invalid repo URL. Okay. Since we added this, and if you save it, if you go back to your page, it should look the same now. And then if you type in something like you put in you can test it, you can just do github.com/Facebook/react and press enter. Hopefully you will be brought to this results page. In that results page, you will just see like it won't break or anything. You will see that Facebook React. So you will see that something that this show the repository. It would mean that it is implemented correctly. Okay, so that was a lot of content already. Hopefully you're not overwhelmed. If you are, I do recommend going through this workshop companion guide. Click on a few of the links that I put into the comments, and then you can further understand these hooks, because it is very complex for, I guess, someone new to this kind of coding. Okay, so congratulations. We did render the search bar now. We also you did create your first hook. So your first hook over here, your search and set search use state hook. Now we have to look, we looked at the remaining code already. We looked at use history. We look at the stack and path. We did number 7. We tried to understand the event handler. So quick summary. Let's do a quick summary. Okay, let's see. Let me quickly zoom out a bit. Oh shoot, never mind. I can't zoom out. It's too small. Okay, let me zoom back in. I don't know my shortcuts, unfortunately, because Control plus equals is kind of weird. Okay, so in this quick summary, we made a hook. The hook is for setting our search state to be whatever user inputs. Next, we did to do number 6. We actually implemented a search bar. We have it on change property where if the user changes, like types something in the search bar, then we update that with the set search method. And then we have on request search. So when the search icon is clicked, we don't have a search icon here. We just press enter. If you press enter, then it handles the search in your handle search. What happens is we split the query, and then based off whatever position in the array it is, it's either valid or it's not. If it's valid, then we would basically, depending if it has HTTPS as the first entry in index 0 or not, then we would push the index array of 1 for the owner, 2 for repository, and 3, 4 for if we do have the HTTPS. Okay, and then what happens is you can test it, and then it should push to the results page. Cool. Okay, the next part. Okay, so here's the TLDR of everything. Yeah, well, the test URLs, and yeah. So the next part is we will look at the bulk of the application, which is the results page. The results page is a little bit complex. Oh, by the way, if you are behind, once again, here's another catch-up place. It has to do 1, to do 2, 3, 4, all the way to 7. So you catch up by just like reading through this real quick, maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, read it over, and you'll be caught up. Or you can copy paste it. Okay, understand results page. So let's go back to routes. So what did we do here so far? We did the home page. And the home page has the home content, and inside the home content, there was the search section. So we went through like 2 components and 1 page so far. So let's close all of that. Let's go to our last part, results page. So this is the bulk of our application. So now what we're working on is we're working on this page. In this application, in the actual working application, this is what it looks like. So I can expand the window here real quick. So you have a top bar, which is your basic title, new search button. So just brings you back to the home page. Our current repository with like just tells the user which repository owner it is and which repository name it is. A huge like render of all these different card components with like multiple states for the pull requests. And then of course you have your pagination at the bottom, in which case you just like press the page and then you'll be able to do a new pull request. Okay, so here we go. So in this case, we will right click into results page, or you can right click down here, or you can go to the sidebar, click on results page. And then let's look at the results page. So in this results page, we use both use state and use effect. So we also use the use locate, we use window dimensions, which doesn't really matter. And then we have two new libraries from Material AI. We have custom components here, query data content, and also the top bar. So let's go to our results page. So this is our results page. It's the page we want to render when we route to the /results. The objective of this page is to render all the GitHub issues that we have fetched from the GitHub API. We will use use location. Use location is another React router hook. A little bit complex, but this hook also returns the location object used by the React router. The object represents the current URL and is immutable. And then whenever the URL changes, the use location hook returns a newly updated location object. We will use this to extract the state of our previous use history that we use. So right now, remember that use history we did push. So let me go back to that component. It's called search section. In our use history, we did push our path name and our state to our stack. So right now in our stack, we have the owner with the Facebook so far, and according to this example, as an example, and the repository name. So we need to get access to that. So we use location for that. But yeah, so and then so what do I have to do? On this page, we need to do an API call. So to do an API call, we need to know, we actually have to look at what API we're calling, right? So let's just quickly look at the GitHub API first to see what kind of data we need. I kind of spoiled it already earlier when we were looking at the search section, so we didn't have to go back. What it is if you go on the GitHub API, I conveniently linked it here, but if you can just type in GitHub API, and then it'll be the first one. And then you can pretty much just type in the search bar like this repository issues or something, and then you can find it somewhere here. But in this case, I already found it for you. You're welcome. So this API, this is the format. So you do a GET request. It is a GET request. You do /repos and then the owner of the repository, the name of the repository, and the /issues. If you scroll down, you can see all these parameters and basically explains what the parameters are. You can basically see the API call here, like a sample API call. So yeah. So how do we actually get this? And it also gives you like a sample URL for API. So based off this GET request here, this GET format, we know we need the owner repository. So that's why we pushed the owner repository before, so we can just get that data ASAP. But we upon like doing API call, you need a state, basically a variable to store your API response, because what happens when you call an API, you get a JSON back. So let me just show you a quick API call example. So in the example here, it's actually the use is API github.com/repos. Instead of being owner, I just fill in the Facebook, I fill in the React, and I show the issues and open state. So what I see here is just a JSON. It's an array of like issues. So you can see all these cool objects. It's like really straightforward array. And each of them is the same schema as your response here. So this response shows like all your properties of each issue. So this is actually issue number 23115. So if you go to our solution here, you can see our 23115 right here. It's state open, and then you see it's bump mark from whatever, and it's like bump mark from whatever. So it's literally the API call. So we do need to store this somehow. So how do we store it? The answer is a useState hook. So to use this useState hook, we need to code it right now. So we're missing it. So that brings us to do number 8. To do number 8 is create a useState hook for query data for a method called setQueryData to update it. The initial value should be an empty array. And of course, you can look at this hook, or you can look at the hook we implemented like a bit back. Yeah, so I'll give you everyone like just a quick 20 or 30 seconds to try to implement it. It'll be a simple copy paste. I'll just grab a quickly rehydrate. Okay, so let me just quickly mute myself for 10 seconds. Okay, so you should all stay hydrated as well. Hopefully you have gotten like somewhere or that started a little bit. If not, we'll go over a solution now. Okay, so actually I'm not gonna put it here. I'm gonna put it right here, which is where the correct location put it for me. Okay, so to do number 8, create a useState hook for the query data with method called setQueryData. So we just type in your format for useState hooks. State, and then it said, so what it says in this information is we need to have basically, let's see, look at page numbers. So it's basically the same thing here. We need to set our initial state inside this useState, and then we have to set our variables. So let's set our query data variable first, query data. And we just set query data, query data. Cool. And then what is our default value? The initial value should be an empty, and then what did I say? It should be an empty array. So let's just put an array here. Cool. Now our hook is done. Now we look at the GitHub API. We already looked at it. So our objective, use the GitHub API to show a list of all the GitHub issues from a specific repository. We use that repository, we listed it. And then now we actually have to do API call. So how do we do that? We will be coding a function called fetch data. It is an async function. If you're not familiar with API calls, usually you would wrap in an async await function API call. You'll wrap it with async await. Essentially, it means that asynchronous. Your fetch API accesses resources across the network, and you can make HTTP requests like get, post, delete, put, etc. In this case, we're making a get request as shown by our GitHub API right here. Where to go? Up here, the get request. So fetch starts it with a request and returns a promise. Promises are a bit complicated to explain, so you should probably Google it, where you can click on this nice documentation link right here, which goes through it. When the request completes, the promise is resolved with the response object. If the request fails, promise is rejected. The reason it's asynchronous is because usually for like API response, when we do an API call, we need to get a response, and we have to wait until the request completes. But we don't want to like stop everything on the page and wait until like the response like completes, right? So we have to do other stuff while we wait for that API to resolve. API response to get that response essentially. So that's why it's asynchronous. So let's quickly get let's quickly just code a new fetch then. So if we look at the fetch function is a little bit confusing for first time individual doing API call for the first time. So I did give you a hint. The hint is this would be what the API call, what you would call essentially. So this would be the URL you call the resource. So this is just using the Facebook React. Of course, you have to change it up to be the owner and repository. So let's go right ahead and do it. So we actually do a wait fetch because we need to do a wait fetch, and I'm just gonna press enter here because it's gonna be a big URL. When you want to, so if we did this directly, what would happen? What would happen? It would just call the Facebook React API on page 21, page 1, and then have 21. So for the page 1 of like the React issues, essentially, of the Facebook React. But we don't want only the Facebook React issues. We want like the issues that the user puts in. So if I change the repository from like to Microsoft or something, then I want to have Microsoft's issues, not Facebook's. So we need a variable in here. So in React to do a custom variable inside your string, you have to do this weird like quotation mark thingy. So it's actually usually on the left side of the number 1 on your keyboard. So it's like this. I think in Markdown, if you do like this as well, it also does like code, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but yeah. And then next we have to also put in the owner. So if you want to put like a variable inside your string, you would have to do $sign and then curly bracket. So do that twice. We're also going to do the page as well, since actually we do have a page here. So we do this, and then all you do is just put your variable inside. So what do we do for the first one? So we have to use a location. So location equals use location. This React hook, router hook returns location object. So we can just access your location by doing something like location and dot. And then remember, so in our location, we're in slash results right now. We also need to access the state. So we dot state, which is from the history right here. So location and the state. So resource state, and then we have to do owner repository. So we could just do for the first one is owner according to the API documentation, and for the second one it would be repository. And then of course the page number will be page number. We have a hook here that stores the page number. It's set to default 1, so we can just set it here. If you're lazy, don't want to do page number, then you can just do 1. But we have the pagination set up, so we might as well do the page num as well. So this would be your API fetch. Okay, so what do you have to do next? So what happens after this call? It waits until the request completes, and then we have to store the response somehow. So how do we store the response? So that's to do number 10. I'll give you another 10 seconds to quickly do it while I get another glass of water because I am dying. And actually a second glass. I don't know why I have 2 glasses here, but okay. So let's try out the next one. So notice how we did an await fetch. Now we have to do an await response. So let's do an await response.json. So what this does is it returns it in JSON format. Yay. So yeah, we do have a response.json here. It stores the response in the JSON variable JSON. And then what this does is it basically just does some error checking, and then it brings us to do number 11. We're not done yet. Okay, so far this function, what does it do? It does an API call. It waits until we have a response. Hopefully it looks like something like this. And then if there's an issue, we throw an error. If it's not, I mean, so right now at to do 11, it's valid. What do we do? What will we do? We have to set the we have to set the query data variable because query data state, which is a query data variable. Right now it's an empty string. No, it's an empty array. So it's literally empty. So that means like if it's empty, it means that like it'll show nothing. Like it'll be like this. So we want to populate it. So we do need the API response. So we just store the API response into the set query data. Not into the set query data. Yeah. No, into the query data. So how do we set the query data? We just call the set query data method. So we just do set query data right here. You input your JSON, then so your JSON is now set into a hook. And then of course, if there's an error, you can just like we commented this out before, but you can uncomment it. Basically, if there's an error, we just set it to be like empty. So just in case anything happens, just empty. So it doesn't show anything. Okay, so that is to do number 10. Okay. Let me quickly just do a quick time check real quick. The time is till 8. Okay, we are still good on time so far. Okay, so that now that we complete this fetch data variable, fetch data method, we can continue. we see an event handler. We're on to do number 11. We can skip that for now. Maybe look at it after. Actually, let me explain it real quick. Actually, it's real fast. So this is another event handler. So what does the event handler do? So upon doing some kind of event, it handles the events. So in this case, it's called handle pagination change. So we, on the very bottom of your document, I mean, I guess in your results page.jsx file, you will see a pagination component that we imported from Material UI. This pagination component is this thing at the bottom. So what happens is when you click on number 2 or number 3, the value of this is will be whatever the number would be. So this would be like your whatever page number you'll be. In the GitHub API, we have this thing called page. Let me see. Yeah, page. So page number of the results to fetch. The reason why this API has pages is because sometimes the response will be too large. For example, on Facebook's React page, you will see my stuff on here, but Facebook's React page, there's 691 issues. To get 691 issues, and there's 10,000, over 10,000 closed. So that means like in total, you'll get over like, yeah, you'll basically get over 10,000 JSONs of like this size if we want to get all of it. So there's no way that GitHub's API would give you all that information at once. So they paginate it. So they split it into smaller pages, and then he'll be able to get like smaller chunks of data. In our case, in our API call, we set it to be only 21 per page. Why did I choose number 21? Is because it's easy to divide by 3, and then sort of thing looks nice. If we did 4 or 5, then it looks weird. We'll have more columns and stuff. But yeah, that's why I did 21, so it's divisible by 3. But you can change it to whatever number you want. And then the default page is 1, but we have a page number here because we want a state so that we can set the page number. So in this pagination right here, so let me go back to this example. In this pagination, what happens is we have, this is by default, you can just look at the API, I mean, not the API, the Material UI documentation to see what kind of parameters and properties this pagination has. But on change, so when we change this, it triggers the handle pagination change method. So this, you can also call a function like this. Before we were like calling it like this, but you don't have to do it like that. You can also just call it directly. So in this case, you call it directly. Handle pagination change, which is our event handler. This event handler takes that page number and then just sets the page number so that we are able to do a new API request. Okay, but that's not it. So that's only one part of the next part that we're talking about. We have to talk about use effects. A use effect is really important too. A use effect you'll also see in industry a lot if you do React developments or front end React development for industry or like your internship, you will probably use effect. So what does it do? By using, this is a type of React hook as well. You will tell React that your component needs to do something after your render, and then React will remember the function you passed. So basically we call it an effect, and then call it later by performing the DOM update. So why do we want it for our program? So we want it for our program because if we click number 4, what do we notice in this solution? Or wait, number 3 or number 2? It changes. Our data changes. Our data changes because we do a new API call, a brand new API call. The brand new API call does a new API call with the same like params, except for the page number changes from 1 to 2 or 3 to 4 or 4 to 2 or whatever. That's why. But why are we able to do the API call? It's called use effect. So we'll just code it now. So we want to call the fetch data method every time the location or page number changes. So this is typically what use effect looks like. Let me quickly just go here again so that you can see where we are. We're right here. So what happens is we have the async await, another async await. So async arrow function, and we just call our await fetch data here. So this is our method to call the API. Call the GitHub API. And then inside this bracket, Basically, you can basically it makes it more specific. So whenever a value inside this, basically the square bracket changes, then it triggers the use effect. So in this case, we want to trigger location and page number. If we can also leave it blank. We can also leave it blank and get rid of this completely. But if we do get rid of it completely, then what happens is every time something changes, like anything changes, then it calls a new API request. And we don't want that because we want to keep the data on the page consistent and use that only that one. We don't need that many API requests. We'll only need an API request triggered if we have the change the location or like the page number so that we can do the new one. So that's how we do that part. Okay, and then of course, if you need more documentation on this, I highly recommend you look at the React official documentation, which is just the React hooks right here, use effect, and just the hooks effect. Okay, so that's to do number 12. There are 14 to do, so we are almost done. So let me look for number to do number 13. Oh, actually, let me just, so yeah, okay, I did explain that already. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we did look at the use effect now. So every time page or location changes, we call a new API call. In that API call, it will take the state, the new state or whatever, assuming we did the pagination change, a page change, and then it will call this API with the new page, and then we'll get new data. So that is why we can see the update every time. Okay. So if we look back at our code, if we refresh this, right now it should be, let's see. Right now it's still nothing. Why is there nothing? Because we're not done yet. So right now, what do we have? Right now we have API call. We set the data in our state. And then we have a use effect that basically updates again and does another API call every time it changes, and then we have the pagination. But we never actually displayed it anywhere, our API data, except for this current repository. The reason is because that's for to do number 13. So we're going to make a new component called the query data content component. So what is this? This component is basically the component that like has all these cards. That's why we want to make a new component. I just don't want to make this file too long. So let's do that. So the to do is with added. So we added by importing. I already imported it, so you can just call it. So go to the top, copy paste that create data content, and then go to the number 13 to do. You go right here and then just slap it in. We do want to also make use of a new thing that we haven't done yet, which is passing a prop to our component. So why do you have to pass in a prop? We pass in a prop because we need the query data content needs access to that. It needs access to our results. So basically to our state. So how do we do that? All we do is just basically make a variable and then just pass it in like almost as though it's like a function parameter. So we just call query data equals query data, and that would pretty much do it. But you also have to modify your actual component too. So note that in your functional component, it's like just a function, right? So constant results page equals arrow function empty param and then whatever. If you control click into the query data content page right here, then all we do is we just have a parameter here called query data. So what is this component do? You can also find this in components as well. Components query data content. This component contains the query data portion of our application. It basically has all these cells. Basically, it uses a map function to iterate and apply the properties to each element of the array. Make sure to remember that query data is a JSON. So we pass in the JSON as basically a parameter, a property into this components from our, like, I guess this would be the parent and this would be like a child component because the results page, like this query data content is like in the results page. So this would be like the parent and this would be the child. You're passing from the parent component to the child component. Okay, and then we basically remember that in this query data, it's a JSON. So like this is the response we get, this big array of JSON stuff, more smaller JSONs. So basically the whole thing's a JSON, and it just has like each entry in here is an issue with like, it's basically an issue. So so each entry in the JSON response is a single issue, and then we iterate through it. And then for each component, we create a grid list tile, card, and card component while extracting the properties. So how do we do that? So we can take a grid list. So, oh, by the way, all this stuff is just imported from Material UI. So you don't have to create it because these are like, so the card. So we have a grid list, 3 columns. We just add some custom styles to it. And then we have a query map. Query data. Query data would be our property, and we just do a .map function. So if you're not familiar with what a .map function does, what it does is it iterates through the array, and then for each element, it applies a function or method to it. In this case, for each single issue in our JSON array, we basically return, so we render a new grid list tile, and then we wrap that. This is the parent, by the way. So we do a grid list tile. So that would be just a grid list tile. It'll be 1 tile. Oh, by the way, if you refresh the page, this is what it looks like now. So it's just a grid list tile, and then we have a style. Inside the grid list tile is a card. So this card thing here, and then inside the card we have a card contents where we just have a conditional. In React, we use a conditional like this. So this is basically your equivalent of your if-else statements. And then inside there, you have your typography and basically here. So let me quickly explain this, I guess. So what is this? So what I did was I did create data. So I basically mapped this array, and then I basically said, I made a variable called map datum and index. So I made each grid list tile have a key in the index. And then I took my map datum. Map datum would be basically a single issue. So if I want to map datum, like the second map datum, so I assume I ran through it. Actually, let's do the first one. So if I did the first one, so that'll be the first issue here. I'll have access to all this stuff. So how do I get access to like old state or something? I just do map datum dot state. How do I know if there's a pull request? I could just do map datum dot pull request if there is a pull request here. But that's what you can do. So to do this part, we have a conditional ternary statement. It checks if the issue is a pull request and it's open. If it is, we know it's a pull request. Otherwise, it could be something else. So map datum is a pull request if this is true and the map datum state is not closed. Or the map datum state is open and it is a pull request, and we know it's a pull request. We just put typography, we just call it a pull request right here. In the case it's not a pull request, so that means the first statement is false. Then we can check if the state is closed. If it's closed, so we just do another check here. No, it's just a nested ternary. So this is the first check, and if it's not, then we ask another question: is it closed? If it is, if it's true, then the first one would be applied. Otherwise, it would not just be an issue. Yeah, so it was that confusing. I'm really sorry. It's just a ternary. So basically, it's just like, let's see, is this condition satisfied? If it is, so this is a question. Then if it's true, then okay. Otherwise, false. Otherwise, no. Okay. So that's what happens. That's a ternary. So it's basically if else. So if this condition is satisfied, return this. If it's false, return that. So what we did was we just added another ternary. So we just did like, how about this one? And if it is, then we return yes or no. So it's basically like it is just a nested ternary, and you could keep going as well. But this is the way to essentially do like an if else statement and do conditional rendering for a React page. So that's why we have like, just like we're able to just type this out instead of going like it'll be much more hard. I see a question real quick. I'll just quickly answer it. When would we prefer a nested ternary to an if else? The problem is you can't really do an if else here because it's kind of like you're pretty much rendering it. So it's a little bit harder to do an if else in React because what you're doing is you're just coding in this like square curly bracket. So you just want, it's just, I think it's more convenient to do a ternary in this case. Okay, let's just quickly continue. We all do have to try to, we could probably fit in deploying today in a bit if we have extra time. Okay, so let's just do our last step. So we did do a conditional rendering here, and then now let's do our number 14. Add the following properties into the card from the API response. This is a quick exercise to see if you can actually like put the data in here. I'm gonna go through it really quick, but if you don't want to go like through it with me and you just want to try it by yourself, then I would suggest just try it right now, and like mute yourself. I mean, they just mute me for like 5 seconds or something. Okay, so let's just directly jump into it. So we could do map datum dot number, and then you can see that in the left side. Oops, I forgot to put in this curly bracket, so you can see the number now, the number of the pull request, and then we can just do the state as well. So we can do map datum dot state. For these ones, if you don't put this, they'll just interpret as like a text. So you have to put this curly bracket in there. And then BR is just like a space, and then we'll just do the title. Map datum title. Oh. And then as you can see, it worked. Where did I get this information from? I just looked at basically the API, and I just look at what kind of stuff I have in the results. So there's a lot of results here. You can just look at this example here, and in this example, you can just look at the property and see what you want. So if I wanted like the node ID, I could do the same thing. So I just replace the number to node ID, and then you can see that node ID as well. So PR underscore KW, PR underscore KW, exact same. And but we want ID, but that's the repository issue ID. So there we go. We are done here now. Your thing should work. Hopefully it works. You can test it out by clicking new search. Okay, I don't know why it's not working right now, but oh, it is working. Okay, so new node search. You can try out Facebook/React. If you don't like Facebook React, you can do, I don't know, what other Facebook Redux. I think that's open source. Okay, it's not. Okay, I guess I have to do Facebook React. Unfortunately, I don't know my repository names that well today. Okay, so just do Facebook React, and then you can just like type in your, like basically click on the button, and then if the buttons work, then you're pretty much good. Cool. Sorry if I went really fast. We are going to deploy. And we will try to get, we still have some slides to cover. So what would happen is I think Sam's going to go over a few slides. And then if we have extra time and you want to stick around, then we'll also do a deploy. The deploy takes maybe like 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max. It will be it's part 6 of this guide. So all you do is just basically you delete you detach this, like basically delete the .git folder because it's linked to my GitHub right now, and then you make a new repository and commit to GitHub, and then you log into your Heroku account and just follow these screenshots. It's literally just a few clicks of a button because we're not using the actual Heroku like command line because it's just more convenient this way. For a hackathon, you don't want to deal with all these command line things, so just attach, like link your GitHub to the Heroku, click deploy, and you're done. And you'll have a nice site that looks like this right here. Right here, you'll have this nice url.herokuapp.com, and then you'll have a functional website. Cool. Okay, so I'll pass it back to Sam real quick, and then she'll go over the slides.
Okay. Okay. I hope this is okay. So I forgot to do stamp distribution, but we're going to do stamp distribution right now. So if you go on the front end React Heroku text channel in Discord, you can react to the message and you should gain a stamp. Yeah, okay. So resources and conclusion. So good job, everyone. I hope you learned a lot. I know it might have been a bit too fast or difficult. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. but I am providing some resources here for React, but also we do have some past workshops from NW Plus for HackCamp 2021, which is on our Twitch or YouTube channel that does explain a lot about React if you're interested in more. And yeah, that wraps it up. You can stick around for the Heroku deployment. But yeah, again, feel free to connect and reach out. I'll be happy to meet you all. Yeah. Okay, I can pass it back to you, Ben.
Yeah, so I guess we'll keep recording. Right now, this is optional, so you don't have to stay for this part if you do know already. Well, the whole workshop's pretty much optional. You can pretty much just go to, oh wait, let me screen share. Oopsie. Okay, so you can pretty much just go to this companion guide. Like this is the workshop notes. You'll find everything here. Oh no, my computer just screen froze. Give me a second. Let me just quickly reset. Uh-oh. One second. That's what happens when you have too many tabs open. Uh-oh, okay. A second, as my computer just froze. Okay, we're back. My computer froze, so I had to do a Control-Alt-Delete to get out of the tab and unfreeze it. But basically, this nice Notion page, it has everything. So you could just go through everything. If you didn't understand anything, you could go back to the workshop companion notes, go through the steps, read, click on the links, explore, do that kind of stuff. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, so part 6, Heroku. Oh, by the way, there is, I think, right now 8 o'clock or something. I'm not sure when it is. There is team formation going on right now, so you want to go to that, you go to that as well. This is recorded, but for those of you here, let's go to the next part. Okay, so let's deploy on Heroku. So what you do is you first delete the git.git because you did a git clone, so you need to delete the .git folder. So you can just do right click in your VS Code, review in File Explorer. If you are on Replit, you don't have to do this at all because you could pretty much share the link and it works already, I guess. So you don't have to deploy with Heroku. But if you do, you probably have to like export like that and then commit to your GitHub as well. Anyways, you can just right click, or like I think in VS Code and Mac, you can also review in File Explorer. You click the review in File Explorer, or you could do Shift-Alt-R, but I don't know my shortcuts. You go here and then you can see a .git here, you delete it. If you're on Windows, you don't have invisible files, you're not able to view invisible hidden items. Go click on your view tab. This is Windows 10, by the way. So for Windows 11, Windows 11, 7, 8, 9, I don't know the other ones. I don't know how you do that, so you'll probably Google it. Just check mark the hidden files and you'll be able to see all the hidden files. Very useful to see the .git. So what you do is you just delete it. So I delete it. And then there we go. So now there's no git here. And how do we check that there's no git? Oh, by the way, to exit it, you do exit this like server. You just do Control-C. And then yes, or you can just do double Control-C. How do I check that there is no git here? You do git branch and then it says fatal, not a git repository. That's what we want. We want to delete the git essentially so that we can basically upload to your own git. So as you can see right here. So now go to your GitHub account. Hopefully you have a GitHub account. If you're doing this workshop, I assume that you're experienced and you are able to do GitHub. So here's a GitHub. Let me just do, okay, so don't worry. Okay. So we'll go real fast. We have to go super fast because there is a team formation getting hosted in this room apparently. Okay, so go to your GitHub and then go click repositories. Make sure you log in, by the way, and then click new repository. In your repository, name something. I'm going to name it test because I'm not creative. You can do public or private. Create repository. Okay, there we go. So what you do now is I pretty much gave you all the commands. You copy paste all these commands and you just paste it. and then it does it all for you. Wow, so cool. So what it does is it initializes your repository, it adds everything onto the repository, it makes your first commit, and it makes new branch called main. The next part you can't copy paste because you have to look at you have to commit to your repository. If I copy pasted my stuff, you would commit to my repository. So what you do is for the last part, the git remote add origin, you just copy paste the last 2 lines of this prompt here. So you just click your prompts here, press Control V. Oh, too many arguments to rename this. Okay, that's weird. Anyways, just press enter. Oops. Let's see. Git branch main origin. Oops. Okay, I forgot to copy paste the git as well. That's why it broke. Let me see what. Oh, oopsie. It's not working right now because I copy pasted this template. That's why. How silly of me. So I actually have to copy paste this. So copy paste this into here. Remote origin already exists already. That's good. And then just get push main. Okay, I think what happened was I accidentally committed to the username thing. So unfortunately, I messed up on my end. So I'll have to quickly delete that again. I'll just do it again real quick. So what I'll do, I'll just do this. Go here. Okay. Get rid of this readme. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So now it should work. Okay, so I think this is actually breaking for some reason. I set up my GitHub wrong, unfortunately. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me quickly debug this real quick. Yeah. Okay, boom, boom. Okay. Anyways, I already pretty much deployed it. Unfortunately, I messed up on the GitHub. I think I committed before, and then I had it in my remote path or something, the remote origin. So I added the remote origin. But basically, TLDR, what you do is you go to your Heroku, you create your Heroku account, create new app, and then in your new app, what you do is you go to the deploy tab, and then you go click GitHub, and then what you do is you will find, like, you type in your repository. In my case, it's called GitHub Issue Explorer. You connect it, and then you could enable automatic deploys. And just deploy the branch manually. You deploy master. So if you enable automatic deploys, every time you push to master or merge to master or main, it will automatically issue a new deploy instruction. If you want to view the logs, you could go to just more, and then you could just do a few logs. And you can see all your logs here. Cool. One last thing about deploying is that there is a piece of code that's really important. That is, can I find this GitHub anywhere? It'll be here. React Git. This code called the proc file. The proc file is incredibly important because this is what you would need for Heroku to basically start a program. If you're using Yarn, you have to change this to web yarn start, and then it will work. If you have any questions, just you can email us, message us, or do a TA, message a TA, or like you can contact us later as well. Sorry that I couldn't demo the GitHub part, but yeah, that's it for a workshop. We do have to switch rooms. Well, I guess we won't switch rooms. I guess like the team formation will be hosted now. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you later.
Bye.